Welcome to episode 4 of Fatal Female Friday. Today we are doing a case based on what is believed to be the oldest female serial killer, and although her real name is Anna D. Pissenjaw, she's more well known as Baba Anujka, but for the sake of the story, she'll be referred to as Baba since it'll be just easier for me. And so we already know this is probably going to be another long video, so let's go ahead and get started. Since this story does take place in the early to mid 1800s, there's not a lot actually known about Baba in her earlier years due to incomplete and missing records. So I couldn't exactly get a lot of information regarding this case, so apologizing in advance. And it said that she was actually born in 1838 in Romania to this rich cattleman. However, she claims that she was born 2 years earlier, so 1836. But we know that she was alive sometime during the 1800 era. And so Baba was actually lucky enough to attend private school in Pansvito, and she actually spoke 5 languages. So obviously she was very intelligent. She moved to the Vladimir Ovak and in the Banat military frontier province of the Austrian Empire in 1849, so when she was 10 or 11. And then at the age of 20, she was actually seduced by this Austrian officer who broke her heart and later on gave her syphilis, but which I guess back then they didn't know was syphilis, but that's what we believe that she had as a result from this affair. Despite her having this bright future ahead, Baba became a loner and she studied chemicals and medicine. And so in her 20s, she actually did marry this landowner named Pistov or D. Pissenjaw, which is where she got her last name Pissenjaw from, I assume, in which she would have actually 11 children. Damn! But only one of them would actually live to see adulthood. And so, obviously, the death of all her children, with the exception of one, caused her to have this deep hatred towards men. Because of their major age gap, they were actually only married for 20 years before the husband died, making Baba a widow. Yeah, so after the death of her husband, Pisjov, Baba made the lab basically. There's this room in the wing of the house, which I am assuming is a big house. Which if you have 11 children, obviously it's got to be a big house. So it's this room, I guess. I never could find a picture of the house, but apparently there's this room in the wing of the house, and that's where she created the lab to make all her potions. Yeah, so she had access to arsenic, mercury, mousetrap, or tatula plant, which is also known as the devil's grass. Baba actually had a lot of clients, but they were mostly women that were married and had marriage problems. And at first, they actually came to her due to her reputation being a herbalist, with the hopes that their husbands would get sick so that they didn't have to go fight in the war. And so in order to give the correct dose of poison to make sure that the husbands died, she would ask the women how big is the problem, which in other words, I guess in code, it was how much did the husband weigh? Because let's say the husband weighed 150. Obviously, what may work on someone who weighs 150 may not work on someone who's 215, So then once she got the information how big the problem was, she would then give them the poison, the wives the poison, to where the husbands were supposed to die in exactly 8 days. I don't know why exactly 8, but that's just the number that was chosen, I guess.
Death, within your depths I see a one who dares to rival me. the magical recipe. Oil, cauldron. Oil!
But actually became known as like a witch because she used to wear all black and she would watch the world go by through her window. And so actually there was actually an incident back in 1914 where she provided poison used for a murder, but she was later acquitted. I guess they believed because of her age, they didn't believe she was capable of murder, but okay. And so Baba, obviously the successful business, she couldn't do it alone, and she had actually hired this woman named, forgive me, okay, Lajuvia Malenkov. She had actually hired this woman named Lajuvia Malenkov, who basically would like go around being like nosy, like listening in on all the married women's business. And so once she found out the ones that like weren't happily married and were in these abusive relationships, that's how she would figure out, oh, these potential customers. So then she would basically take them back to Bubba's house to help them get out of these marriages that they didn't want to be in anymore. And so obviously Baba was not doing this for free. Your girl needed her coins, right? So she was over here charging anywhere from $2,000 to like $10,000 in used glove diners, depending on how much the woman made. So she was very flexible regarding. But it's nice to know she was at least flexible with her prices, because not everybody's making bank back then. Allegedly, there was like this really like hot night where Bubba saw like two men returning from like some sort of dance, and she offered them both lemonade, in which I guess they both accepted it, and then they died exactly a week later. Her spree obviously came to an end because of one of her regulars, which you would think with. I didn't think she would have regulars. I thought it'd be just a one time thing, you know? But no, she had at least one regular, and her name was Stana Montanov. And so she had actually killed her husband, Lasar, and then she got remarried. But, so the husband that she got remarried, she didn't kill him, but she killed her husband's uncle because her husband was like, had a lot of money. He was rich. And so obviously the police were like, okay, so your husband died and now your uncle-in-law died, and obviously they could tell that their deaths were like pretty similar, and you're the common factor in both those deaths. So what could you tell us about it? And so obviously she immediately pointed the finger to Bubba.
Really, nigga?
However, another death was actually soon to follow when a man named Sima Mazanov, which was no relation to Stana, by the way, and his wife Sophia went to Baba with the intention of killing Simba's father, Nicola, who was like 70 and was this alcoholic abuser. And so Sophia had heard about Baba through Danica, this woman named Danica, that was actually unclear on how involved with Baba she was. And so Sophia had gotten her granddaughter, Olga Sturza, who was actually only 16 at the time, and she unknowingly to do like the dirty work, and she basically gave her grandfather the drink that caused him to die. But he died 2 weeks later, I guess not 8 weeks later. And so actually, so Bubba, along with Stania, Sophia, Sima, Danica, Olga, and Lajubia were all arrested for the murders of Lazar and Nicola. Both bodies were exhumed and confirmed to have in both of them arsenic. Samples were taken from Bubba's home, and of course there was arsenic in the lab, so they were like, okay, arsenic in the bodies, arsenic in the lab, matches up. The prosecutors on this case actually wanted all parties to get the death penalty, except for Olga, because she was underage at the time of these murders. Not because she didn't know that old dude's gonna die, but because she was a minor, and that was the only thing that saved her from getting that death penalty. At the trial, the women actually said they didn't know that the potion was poison and that Bubba had used like It says supernatural, like magic, to basically kill the people. And so Baba actually shot back, by saying that she had never sold him any potions, and that Lajubia was the one who did it all. So basically blaming all the assistant, basically. And so on July 6, 1929, Stanya and Safinja were sentenced to life in prison. Sima got 15 years, Lajubia got 8 years, and Danica and Olga were set free, since there was no proof that they knew, well, at least for Olga's part, I can't speak on Danica. There's no proof that they knew someone was going to die as a result of drinking a drink. Yeah, so Baba was actually sent to 15 years in prison at the age of 91. Both the prosecution and defense went to appeal, but the prosecution wanted Baba to face death.
Death to all of them.
At this point, at least get one of them to face death, right? Basically, there was a retrial, and Stanya and Safija actually got the same sentence, so they still got life in prison. Sima was actually resentenced to life in prison, so now he has it too. Lajubi, Lajubi, no, the assistant, her sentence went from 8 years to 10 years. I guess they added 2 years on her sentence. And Danica and Olga, luckily, were still acquitted, still set free. I guess still proved innocent. So at least one good thing came out of it. Bubba was actually given the same sentence, so she still had the 15 years, but actually hard labor added onto it. And obviously, when you're 91, you obviously can't do a lot of things. So I don't know how that must have been for her, but I bet you it must have been horrible. The exact number of Bubba's victims actually remains unknown because apparently there was like there was this family that was involved, and they religiously refused to do autopsies or cooperate, which I didn't know you could religiously refuse anything back in those days, but okay. What happened basically what happened to like all the other people, like Olga and Sema and Danica and all them, we actually don't even know what happened. Where there's no record as to what happened to them, so we just assume they lived out their sentences, and then the ones that got life, they obviously died in prison, and then everybody else they got out and lived their life, and then just died. And so Baba was actually released 8 years later, like due to her old age. Yeah, so Baba was actually released 8 years later due to her old age, because remember she was in like her early 90s when she went in. And so and so yeah, 1938 at the age of 100, or at least we believe she was 100. Baba actually died in her home in Vladimirovac. And so, but another source actually says that she was released by German invaders, and that she died in her home at 104. So you got one source saying she died in 1938, but you got another one saying 1942. But most of them say 38, so we're gonna go with 38. I don't like to give my personal opinions for these videos, but what I'm thinking is, if you have a regular and your job is out here giving poison to people so they can go kill people, I think that's where she messed up, was having regulars. Because I'm thinking, had she not, or at least had Daniel had not gotten greedy and tried to kill the rich uncle, Baba could have possibly went on to kill other people. So maybe it is good that Stanya snitched. But at the same time, Baba could have just one day just died, and she could have literally took the secret to her grave, but would have never faced like any crime or punishment or anything. And probably nobody believed it because she appears to be this sweet little old lady. But yeah, that was the case of the oldest female serial killer that we know of, obviously. And so yeah, that was the case of Baba Anushka, and there goes the end of episode 4 for Fatal Female Friday. Yes, that's pretty much all I have for you today, and I will see you fatal females later. Bye.